For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome. Here's wishing all our viewers a very happy, healthy and prosperous 2022. So on the first day of the new year, I want to speak to you not about strategic affairs, not about the usual subjects of foreign policy or defense, but something a little more personal. And that's the topic of the first Simply Nitin of 2022. I'm Nitin Gokhale. So I'm taking you back almost a quarter century, 24 years to be exact. On 10th December 1997, I released my first book called The Hot Brew. This one. In fact, I have just 2 hard copies of this book left with me now after so many years. After people bought it from a local bookshop in Guwahati. In fact, the publisher was a local publisher called Spectrum Publications in Guwahati. And this book, I think I've mentioned it in one of my earlier discussions, has been my fastest written book. I don't think I'm going to ever better that record because I wrote this book in 25 days. It's not too long a book. It's actually 154 pages with index. So it's more like a racy thriller. And it is based on what happened between 1987 and 1997 in Assam, between the militant organization or later called terrorist organization, the United Liberation Front of Assam or ULFA, and the old, very old, century-old, more than century-old tea industry, which was the target of these militants who wanted Assam to have initially more autonomy, and then they wanted a separate Assam. And therefore, if you see what I have written here, the Assam tea industry's most turbulent decade. The tea industry was founded in 1835 in Assam, but it actually came under scrutiny and under pressure from militants in the decade of the 80s. From 87, 88, they started getting threatening calls, ransom demands, and some kidnapping was happening against tea industry executives. The background is that the Assam tea industry was mostly British until 1960s. Later, Indian industrialists took over some of the older British companies or had some of the bigger multinationals had their tea gardens in Assam. So Unilever, now known as Hindustan Unilever, Tata Tea, which had the brands like Finlay initially and then later the brands like the Tata Tea brands, which the Tatas have been taking in the market or selling in the market for a long time. Now, Tata, Williamson Mega, the Hindustan Levers, now Hindustan Levers, that time Unilever, then Khaitans, the Assam company, which is the oldest tea company in the world. So Assam has more than 700 plus tea gardens, big and small. Big companies still own some tea gardens, and at least 24 years ago, 25 years ago, Tata Tea, Williamson Mager, all of these companies had quite a few number of tea gardens in Assam. Brook Bond, Lipton were the brands that were very popular. Assam Tea Company, the world's oldest tea company, also has gardens in Assam. So the tea gardens were always different from the larger Assamese society. They worked in the cocoon. They had their own timings of work because they wanted to catch as much daytime as possible. So they had Bagan time, which was 1 hour ahead of the Indian Standard Time. So they, instead of saying 6 a.m. Indian Standard Time, they would have start work at 5 a.m. Indian Standard Time and call it Bagan time. So for years, they did not interact with the local Assamese. The tea laborers who were employed were mostly initially in the 1800s called from or brought in as slaves and together in groups from Jharkhand and Chota Nagpur. So they again were different from the larger Assamese society. There were very few Assamese, local Assamese tea estate owners. So the resentment, the kind of envy built over a century and more, finally resulted in some of the armed militants of the ULFA aiming or taking a pot shot at the tea industry. And they knew the tea industry made huge profits at that point in time. And they imposed, the ULFA imposed a tax of 1 rupee per kg for the tea industry. That time, the production of tea from Assam was nearly 80% of India's tea production. And so they started extorting money individually and from the Assam branch of the Indian Tea Association, which is the tea association for the tea industry. So it became a very tense situation. And by middle of 1988, the ULFA had a free run in the countryside, in the rural areas where they were running a parallel government. They would adjudicate over people. If there were disputes, they would summon the government officials, the small and local government officials. They would summon tea industry stalwarts. In fact, there was a big meeting of the tea industry stalwarts, which was a hush-hush secretive meeting that took place where they said, we are going to impose taxes on you. So all that finally resulted in November 1990 in the dismissal of the Prafulla Kumar Mahanta government, which was the first government which was from a regional party, the Assam Gana Parishad or the AGP. On 27th November 1990, the central government led by Prime Minister Chandrasekhar, who was supported by Congress's Rajiv Gandhi and his MPs, dismissed the government of Prafulla Kumar Mahanta, imposed President's rule, and launched the first army operation in Assam called Operation Bajrang. That turned the tide completely, and Assam became a sort of part of the insurgency grid or counter-insurgency grid in the northeast. It was away from it for a long time. And the run-up to the dismissal of the government in 1990 was very interesting. It was like a thriller unfolding in front of our eyes as reporters. I was very young. I was 28. And I was actually editing a local newspaper called the Northeast Times. We broke the story of how the Prafulla Kumar Mahanta government came under pressure from the center and how the Unilever company played a big part in forcing the central government to impose the president's rule. So all that is included in this book. And I could write this book in 25 days because I was in the midst of reporting this on a daily basis. That time. So this was in 1990 when this happened. And then, of course, subsequently there was the army operation. There was the, as they say, the control over the militant organization brought in by the army. It continued for many years after that. So by 1997, the story became bigger. Tata Tea had outwardly refused to pay money, extortion money to ULFA. But it was helping the ULFA militants to treat their injured people, sometimes even allow or take one of the topmost leaders of ULFA, a woman leader, a female leader, who was pregnant, to be taken to Mumbai and treat her or allow her to give birth to her baby in one of the big hospitals in Mumbai. That sort of took the lead off the entire controversy. In fact, the book begins with that. Pranati Deka, who was the leader of ULFA, a female leader, she was traveling from Mumbai back to Guwahati. That is when the police sort of unveiled this entire conspiracy, as they called it, for Tata Tea. And it became a big headline news in the national press. Till then, the national press wasn't so impressed, except for the army operation in 1990 and subsequently in 1991 called Operation Rhino. But for me, this was, like I said, an unfolding event, and I could write this book. It was a very small attempt And now when I look back, maybe I could have done so many more things in this book. But it still reads like a thriller. And then off late, in the past 7-8 months, I've been getting demands from many of you, either on my WhatsApp or on my direct messaging on Twitter or otherwise, that why can't you put this book up on internet for us to read, since hard copies are not available, the copies are not available anymore, it's out of the market. So I discussed this with my team and they said, yes, it's possible to do. But of course, it can't be put on to StratNews Global or Bharat Shakti. So we are putting this book up on a new website which is being created by my team. Very innovative and very enterprising team. And you will get access to this book in a PDF form from today at some cost, of course. And that time, this book was priced at 280 rupees. Later, subsequently, as I can see here, 340 rupees. So we are going to be a little less than this, or in between these two prices, perhaps. So do go to the link that you will find here if you want to read the book. I promise you, it does read like a thriller. It is an OTT material. In fact, so I'm telling people to see and read and see if it can be made into a series. But that apart, it's something that I wanted to tell you on the first day of a new year. We will come back with more on our usual strategic affairs, defense, foreign policy, international relations. But I thought some self-promotion is not too bad. Do indulge me if you think I've done that. But I thought after 25 years, this book deserves to be reread. And that's why this episode of Simply Nitin is on the Hot Brew. The appropriate name, I thought that time. And it was all very instinctive. In fact, some of the headings that I have given is also inspired by my inspirations that time, Alistair MacLean and Jack Higgins and Frederick Forsyth. So many of those headings are also, inspired by those kind of things. So you will find something new in this. It's an old book, but something new to think of. Do go and access this book on the PDF on the website. Of course, next week onwards, I promise to come back to my usual self of doing what I do on Simply Nitin. But since this was a New Year episode, I thought I'll just do something different. You know where to reach us. You know where to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you have, then tell your friends and family to subscribe. Keep sending feedback and comments. And of course, keep supporting us in whichever way you can. Have a great year ahead. As I said, happy, healthy, and prosperous. And hopefully not dominated by another variant of the COVID-19 virus. I stop here and come back to you next week with my usual offering. Until the next time, it's goodbye.